Hey YouTube, Josh Mon here, coming at you from the middle of quarantine. Actually, in Florida we're starting to loosen the restrictions, which feels weird, but we'll see. I'm sporting my unofficial mask today because, as it turns out, the surgical masks that my place of work bought, I'm allergic to. So in the meantime, I'm making do in my pseudo-post-apocalyptic or train scavenger fashion. But enough about that. Today I wanted to talk to you about a very unique whiskey. It is from Talnua? I don't know how to say it. I'll say Talnua for the course of this. Distillery's Carrowdair. It is an American single pot still, quarter cask, triple distilled whiskey. I believe it is entirely barley. I seem to remember hearing that it was 50% malted barley and 50% unmalted barley. The back of the bottle says, Gaelic tradition meets American pioneerism. Carrowdair, meaning quarter oak, is our first estate-produced single-pot still whiskey. Smaller barrels, known as quarter casks, were traditionally used to ship foodstuffs, wine, and spirits across the globe. Carrowdair, aged in American oak quarter casks, pays homage to the early storage and shipment of spirits that formed the basis for marrying oak and whiskey during the maturation process. Bold, spicy oak notes finish out traditionally triple distilled, unmalted, and malted barley mash. I stopped in the distillery on my trip to Colorado. It is in Arvada, which is not terribly far from Denver. It is bottled at 86 proof. I feel like it was $35 to $40 for this bottle, which was pretty darned reasonable. Today I'm sporting a random snifter-esque glass, as I found my my Glencairn glass. I had forgotten to wash it. The problem with finishing your drinks. Sometimes they make you forget. Anyway, we're gonna go ahead and give this a pour here. Obviously, I'm pretty close to the end of this bottle, so it's gonna be a little more oxidized. The distillery itself is pretty new. I think they opened in 2019, so they're just getting the hang of this. I think this is aged for 2 or 3 years. Obviously, there was a little bit of production and aging before they opened. It was really neat because at their distillery they had on their walls a short magazine Lee Enfield that supposedly was used in the Easter uprising in Ireland in 1914. That itself is another topic for another day. I don't have nearly enough education on the subject, and what I do find is pretty heavily tainted either in a pro-Irish or anti-Irish sentiment. And as an American, I already get in trouble often enough for sticking my nose where it doesn't belong. So I don't want to speak claiming authority on that subject. But whiskey. It's a very strange smelling whiskey, and I don't mean that disparagingly. It's got oak, it's got spice, vanilla, it's grassy. There's a little bit of a sweetness in there that's odd. It reminds me of the esters that you would find in like a Hefeweizen, almost bubblegummy in a certain way. Not that it tastes like bubblegum, but certain Belgian beers as well have got that kind of bubblegum clovish ester. It seems to have come out more as the bottle oxidized. And banana, that's the other thing, which leads me back to the esters. It's pretty leggy, not many legs, but long and stretchy. It's got some toffee on the palate. It's very wooded. I'll reiterate that it's a strange whiskey because it's got certain elements of like Hefeweizen, certain elements of It's reminiscent of bourbon in certain ways, of Scotch in others. It's in the imitation of an uncommon Irish style, but it's nothing like Tullamore or any of the big name, like light-bodied and airy Irish spirits. Yellow is my theme for the day. An unrelated tidbit is that I'm pretty darned colorblind, and yellow is one of the colors that I can see best, so I sport it wherever I'm able. Thanks to my in-laws for Christmas, I got a yellow Benchmade knife because I kept misplacing my blue Spyderco when I set it down. Anyway, on the topic of Ireland in World War I heard not all that long ago about one of the many reasons why America was so late in getting into the war. Supposedly, a good part of that was because we had so many Irish immigrants in America at the time that they formed a massive demographic for any politician to take a look at. And in general, the Irish in America were not fond of rallying to the aid of the British. The British had been subjugating them for a long time. The rebellion in 1914 was put down. The British were drafting the native Irish to go into their war. The Irish in America tended to feel, as I understand it, that it was a British problem for the British to figure out, and America didn't need any part of it. There were also plenty of German immigrants in America at the time, and the Germans and the Irish were also in the same metaphorical boat very often, having the same kind of frowned upon by the upper crust, working class immigrant status. So I imagine many of them formed a little bond with your average German, and as is often the case for war, the more often you get to know not the extremists but the regular folks in another place, the harder it is to sign up to go kill regular folks who were also drafted. And here I go, sticking my nose in a potentially dangerous spot. So I'll return my nose to the whiskey. It's got a very, very faint, I guess you'd call it an off note. I'm tempted to say acetic presence, like the tiniest bit of vinegar on the nose. I happen to really enjoy vinegar, and I might be mislabeling a tasting note that someone else could better name, but it feels like someone took a drop of apple cider vinegar and put it in the bottle. All in all, though, I would say that this is a very intriguing whiskey if you're looking for something strange to sip upon. I keep calling it strange. It's very unique. Maybe it's just my palate. I found a few other folks online talking about it. They don't regard it the same way that I do, but to me, it's very intriguing. I tried it in an old-fashioned, but I felt it was too woody for that. I tried it in a sour, but it was too barley-forward for it. It demands to be drunk straight, and it demands your attention, but that's okay. Anyway, stay safe, you guys. Things are reopening, and I hope that we're all going to be smart about it without panicking. If you start to get too sad, pick up a new bottle of whiskey. See you guys.